No secret that Alek Manoah struggled a lot last season, and in fact, he was one of the worst pitchers in all of baseball. But I still think he's going to remain a key for the Toronto Blue Jays going forward. He's young, he's got a controllable contract, and he's going to be cheap for at least the next few seasons, and someone that the Blue Jays should build around and not just ship off after one bad season. So we'll break that down and much more on this episode of Jays Digest. What's up, Jays fans? I'm your host, Peter Vryonis, alongside host Nick Gosse. Now, Alek Manoah struggled immensely last season, and he did not look at all like the guy who finished third in Cy Young voting the year prior. Obviously, the workload was a lot the year before. He didn't come into camp in exactly the best shape, and he just didn't seem ready to go this season at any point. He got sent down to the minor leagues. He got called back up. He was a little bit better than his first stint, but still not anywhere near that Alek Manoah that we've all known to come and love. And then he got sent down again. And then that was it. Then we didn't hear from him for the rest of the season. And he didn't even pitch for the rest of the season. It wasn't injury related. It was performance related. It was mentality related. And this is just not a good look on all fronts for the Toronto Blue Jays. Now the relationship seems to be fractured between the two sides, and we don't know where they're going to go from here. It's going to be a long offseason of endless discussion between these two. And Nick, what are we expecting going forward from the former ace?
Yes, I have a couple articles I'll pull up, but about a year ago, at this time, we were talking about how Manoah's a guy that should be in primary running to get locked down for a long-term contract, which is crazy how everything changes. Before we get into that, make sure to hit the subscribe button. We're on the road to 10,000. Your support has been unbelievable. Now, Peter, Alek Manoah, he's had a wild career. One of the stranger, even though it's only in 3 years, careers I've seen. He comes up, first start against the Yankees in 2021, absolutely dominant, finishes the year phenomenal. 2022 is a Cy Young candidate going 16-7, and we all think he's going to be that pitcher that is going to be absolutely dominant and lead the Blue Jays to a deep playoff run. And he's the worst pitcher in baseball statistically, and gets sent down, has relationship issues with the front office. Peter, some people are calling to trade him right now. I think that's the last thing you can do, especially with a guy of this ceiling, because you don't want to trade a guy who's coming off a down year, really ever, unless you're guaranteed a crazy package back. But the fact that Manoah had such a bad year, who knows what it's attributed to? Maybe a lot of people say it's the pitch clock. He came into camp a little bit out of shape. Let's just call it what it is. His fastball was down, so I think he can make the adjustments, and we need him to lock down that fifth starter spot, because there is some decent options with Bowden Francis and Ricky Tiedemann, who I don't think is going to get rushed quite yet. But he has, maybe he'll come back with a chip on his shoulder, but this is huge for the Blue Jays. They need him to be at least a semblance of his old self.
Oh, he better come back with a chip
Yeah.
on his shoulder because he's not expected to be their ace anymore. He's not expected to be an all-star level pitcher. And this guy was on his way to being the next Roy Halladay for the Toronto Blue Jays. I mean, that's the way I saw it. Stuff's not phenomenal. It doesn't jump out at you. Same thing with Roy Halladay, mid 90s ish, decent off-speed pitches, but he found ways to pitch deep into ball games, and he didn't get that many strikeouts, but he battled for you every fifth night, and you knew that when he was on the mound, you had a chance to win that game if you're the Toronto Blue Jays. And the same thing with Alek Manoah. That's the same way that I felt with him in his first two seasons. He was electric to watch. I know he doesn't throw 100 and doesn't have that wipeout slider, but he was getting outs, and he was getting outs with remarkable efficiency. And last season, we didn't see any of that at any point. So, yeah, he better come in with a chip on his shoulder. He's got to come in the best shape of his life. He's got to show that he's ready to go. And if he doesn't want to be a Blue Jay long term, then showcase yourself. Showcase that you want to be in the majors, because one more season like that, you probably have one foot out the door if you're Alek Manoah. So if you don't want to be a Blue Jay, fine, but show up to camp with a good attitude, show up in the best shape of your life, and show up ready to have an unbelievable season, and show the other 30 teams, the other 29 teams out there, that you want to remain in the major leagues, and make the Blue Jays regret kind of having that beef with you in the offseason. I guess that's the best way I could spin it for him. If he wants to stay a Blue Jay, show them that you want to stay. If you don't want to stay a Blue Jay, then just pitch your butt off and then go from there.
Yeah, and this all stems from Alek Manoah not being willing to pitch in the minor leagues, not really rehabbing at all. And I guess I don't know if I can consider it a rehab because he wasn't hurt, but at least getting his, pitching back in order to some degree. He was unwilling to do so. And this all goes back to when he got the injections and all the news came out that they thought he was injured. And then it got even worse when he said that he was unwilling to, pitch for the Blue Jays for the rest of the season. He didn't want to go to the minor leagues. It came out that he was very, very upset that he got sent down the second time despite his performance. You can see it right here. He was not a very good pitcher at all. He didn't pitch himself into a deserving spot on the team. So they sent him down a second time. He did not want to pitch for the Buffalo Bisons or any of the teams. He did not want to go anywhere. He didn't want to go back to the Florida Complex League like he did earlier in the season. It was... he just was not happy about it. And unfortunately, that's kind of an unfortunate thing because it ultimately did fracture the relationship. And whether that gets healed going forward, who knows? Maybe not fully. Ross Atkins did come out and say that he, didn't request a trade, which is, I guess, a good thing depending how you think about it. But this all stems down to if Alek Manoah, and it kind of comes down to baseball in general. If you win, a lot of the issues that are internal go away. And unfortunately for Manoah, he's not succeeding. The Jays didn't win, and a lot of the issues are coming to a light here, Peter. And it's just very, very, it sucks. This article kind of goes on to talk about his downfall, even though it's only one year. But a guy who we thought was once a Cy Young, very potential chance to even run it back and maybe do it again this year. Unfortunately, had a very, very unfortunate, quick come, to an end of that. That being said, he will be fine. I'm just hoping the relationship is going to be okay because that's pretty important, especially if he gets back to being able to pitch very, very well. Hopefully, Ross Atkins managed that well, and he did in an interview say that he didn't request a trade, which is interesting, but I don't know.
Yeah, well, baseball is different in that sense. You don't really have leverage as
Yeah.
a player until you spend 5 years in the league, or even more than that at times. So the ball is in the Toronto Blue Jays court right now. What are they going to do with Alek Manoah? That's the big question because it's in his contract. He's got to pitch. If he's still a Toronto Blue Jay, he's got to pitch and he's got to show up where he's demanded to show up. You're getting paid pretty good money here to fulfill a job if you're Manoah, and you got to do it. So he has no choice in that regard. But what are the Jays going to do? Are they going to start him in AAA if he doesn't figure it out? Even if he does figure it out in spring training, are they still going to start him in AAA? And is he going to throw a hissy fit and not show up? Those are the big questions that we're facing here in the offseason. And I don't want to see that happen. I still think he's going to remain a big part of this team long after Ross Atkins is gone.
Yeah.
I think Alek Manoah is a lot more valuable to this organization than anyone in the front office or anyone that he's having a beef with right now. So he's got to figure this out. I think he's just got to come in a little bit more motivated, and he will. Ultimately, he's a competitor. That's part of the reason why he didn't want to go to the minors. He knows he's too good for it, but he just didn't show it last season, and that's what I want to see. I want to see some more out of him.
He doesn't really have a choice anymore, and he's going to have to battle for the spot. Bowden Prince is a guy who could take it over.
Yeah.
Obviously, Alek Manoah is probably going to be the number one contender there, but he also knows deep down, if you're Alek Manoah, that Ricky Tiedemann is in the background there waiting for his opportunity to take over that spot. And like we've discussed many times, his innings are getting up there, but that doesn't mean that he's probably going to be ready for opening day or be called up then. So hopefully it's up to Manoah, and I'm sure the Jays will say, Manoah, you have your chance to run away with it in spring training and the start of the season, but if you don't, there are better options waiting if he can't perform to that ability. So a very underwhelming season, and I guess it gets here. He has not asked for a trade, so that's the key thing. We're focused on solutions with him, which I don't know what those are. A lot of it's mentality-based. Get him back in shape and get him into the pitching lab and just have him work for it. But any quick final thoughts on this before we wrap it up? I'm just hoping that he can be as big of an impact to the Blue Jays as we know he can be, and he has in the past.
It's fully up to him if he wants to
Yeah.
be on the Blue Jays this year or not. I mean, there's a pathway for him. There's an opening in the fifth starter spot this year. It's pretty clear that it could be his if he pitches well in spring training and if he shows up in the best shape of his life. There's no brainer there. And then the year after that, you're going to still have Alek Manoah under contract. Maybe Ricky Tiedemann cracks the roster by then as a full-time starter, but Yusei Kikuchi's contract is off the books, and it's Chris Bassett's final season. And then the year after that, there's another opening, and he's got to keep proving himself year in, year out now, because how do we know those first 2 years weren't anomalies? And this is what he really is, a guy with a lack of stuff and a guy who can't get outs at the major league level. Only time will tell. I still think he's closer to the guy that we saw in his first 2 years in the big leagues, but now he's just got to show it on on a bigger stage because he's going to have a lot of eyes on him this season.
Yeah, hopefully, and I hope he's not the first 2 seasons were an anomaly. But that'll wrap it up. If you want to see our video from yesterday, make sure to click the button on your screen now. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.